Hello, everyone. I'm Professor Geek. Welcome back to the channel, and welcome to another Writer's Stream video. This is the show that we just started a couple weeks ago, and Ishii is actually heading up this show and hosting it, and I'm looking forward to be one of the panelists here, so I'm going to turn it on over to him.
All right. Well, for this evening, we're going to be discussing a vital aspect of the writing process, one that's often overlooked in the self-publishing market, and that is the necessity of an editor and how vital an editor is. And we're not talking copy editing, which is
also vital,
which is kind of obvious that you should have that, but someone who's actually a content editor, someone who goes through your story on the basis of what you're writing and helping you hone your craft and focus in on what you're doing and make sure that you're producing the best work you can. Again, there's a lot of people who think, oh, well, I'm good, I don't need that, or what does an editor do other than fix your typos? Not true. Not true. Furthermore, it's all the more important now that we've got two professional for-hire editors on the stream. Kat's been doing this for what? About 2 years now?
So, yeah.
Doing professional editing for people. She just completed a book for, or are you not allowed to say?
I'm not going to reveal.
Okay.
But
all right.
It's an awesome book, and I have been pimping it, not because I edited it, but because it is actually that good. So.
And Professor has just started up his own service as well, editing content.
Indeed.
And you both have different approaches in different areas of expertise, so I figured this would be perfect.
Definitely. Yeah. That's a great way. Yeah, because there are different strengths, and like you said, styles when it comes to editing. So that'll be fun to hear, Kat's.
Well, strictly as a writer, I've had both of you as consultants on my work. So yeah, absolutely.
True.
So just to get started, why don't we'll start with Kat.
Oh.
Let's just describe what you do.
What I do?
Yeah, what happens when somebody hires you to edit their work?
Well, what I do is I'm a content editor. I will read their manuscript and point out. No. She's pulling me closer to the microphone. Sorry about that. By the way, guys, if you hear like weird gurgling noises in the background, our air conditioner has been on the fritz, so that's probably what you're hearing.
Don't believe her. Those are those are the bodies gasping out in pain.
I edited that out. No,
their last dying breath gurgling up out of them.
Basically, I will, depending on what, how in depth you want me to get it with your manuscript, I'll either read it and give a basic critique of the good points of your story and the points that need to be worked on, fleshed out, filled in, cut, etc. Or if you would like more in depth, I will go chapter by chapter and break down, again, the good points, what worked, and then things that didn't, and help to figure out what points may need to be brought up for later in the story, what points, again, are unnecessary. Basically, what you hear me do, I don't want to scare anybody off, but what you hear me do with Adventures in Awful, I do seriously, professionally, and without malice. Where I go through and say, this needs to be fixed, this doesn't. That's what I do.
Well, that was one of the reasons I pushed you so hard to start doing Adventures in Awful, is because you were so damn good at critique. And when a book really deserves a savaging, my God, does the humor and savagery come out.
And I have no
keep in
qualms
mind,
about savaging people like Tom King.
Yeah, and keep in mind, we don't go after, it's people who really are phoning it in.
Right. Savaging Tom King's writing is like kicking a puppy, all right? That's some low-hanging fruit right there.
Puppy who needs a few stomps.
No, he's not a puppy.
Oh, he's a very, like, I'm ex-CIA. Dude, you were like a broom. I don't know. Like, I think you worked in the broom closet in the CIA. Like,
I actually know what he did.
I
looked into his job, and frankly, I think he's overplaying it and exaggerating.
What did he do? Like a, oh God, I can't remember what they're called.
No, he did legit work, but I looked into his job title and I looked into the specifics of what that person does in the CIA.
Mhm.
And his job was to go over to foreign countries, and I believe they were primarily European countries, go to parties and social events and kind of ingratiate him into different social groups and just listen to what people say.
So
his
his job was to
party.
be a sponge.
Yeah. Be a sponge.
Yeah, and just kind of listen to loose talk.
He looks like a sponge, so that works.
He would pretend to be other people, pretend to be in other professions, and ingratiate himself to those people, and then get dirt on them.
Maybe that's why he has like the most beta, non-threatening looking face expression on his face at all times. Maybe he's just used to that for his job.
He
I think that's
claimed that
just
was
his
why he
face.
was good at it. It was no one suspected him.
Yeah.
I mean, would you ever
This
suspect Tom
loser.
King to do anything? Yeah. I the only thing I would suspect he could do is completely savage a Batman script. Oh,
So what about you, Prof? What would you bring? What do you bring as an editor?
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly much the same as Kat was talking about. I mean, part of that, it's definitely editing. I guess probably because I come from, the classroom setting. That's why I'm really fascinated to hear a lot more what Kat has to say, because Kat's actually got the experience of accepting or rejecting the actual manuscripts. That's really what what it comes down to for a lot of people. But coming from the classroom setting too, I'm looking at it. What is this work trying to say? What is the what are we trying to go for here? And the writer doesn't always know that when they first get an idea and they're working through a manuscript. But I try and help the writer discover that along the way, because if all you can say about your work and when you finished it is that, well, it's just cool, it's a story about a guy who gets frog powers. Well, you've got to be able to boil your story down to what is this story about? When it comes to like an elevator pitch, this has got to be a story of coming to terms with one's differences or something like that. You got to have some sort of pitch, in the end. So I try to work them towards that. But I do have a lot of people, especially right now, who are first-time writers, or not necessarily first-time writers, but this is the first time they're going to really try to put this script out there on the market, whether crowdfunding or whatever. So I'm working with them. And one thing that I do notice that a lot of people, and I don't want to step on, maybe you're going to ask about this too, but one thing that people tend to be surprised about when they're not used to the editing process is that, it's going to be the manuscript's going to be pulled apart when you get it back. It's like once you find a little thing that needs work, it's like pulling a loose thread on a sweater. And it's not that, you have to start over completely from scratch and nothing you did was worth anything and you're a horrible writer. No. You did some good things, but okay, that was the first.
well, you're obviously not doing it right.
Yeah. let's break it down again, and let's take those good things that you had in there and still use those. But let's set it up and work it up into a way that'll work even better. And again, that's speaking with somebody who sees a lot of very first drafts, So
Yeah, I mean, for instance, when I gave you a story of mine to edit, I greatly appreciate you helping me out with that. You saw a very polished, near finished draft.
absolutely, yeah.
I mean, it had gone through multiple rewrites. Kat had gone over it multiple times. I had a few other people read it. But what would you say the experience for you on that is? And then I can give you my feedback.
Of looking at your draft?
Yeah, what did you do for me?
I think I was really probably just serving as a separate set of eyes for you more than anything. I mean, I definitely saw a couple of things. I think I caught, if I remember correctly, that your average reader who maybe doesn't live with you or inside your head wouldn't maybe quite know what this was or that was, So I think I got you to explain a couple things like that. But the structure, and like you said, it was very polished, from this story already.
Actually, that brings up a good point, is having multiple people take a look at your manuscript, especially people who, that's another reason why you really want an editor, is the editor doesn't know you, doesn't live with you. Yes, your friends and family may be very good at telling you what is needed in your story, but you really need that outside influence, somebody who does not know where you're coming from, to be your audience and point out what things work and what don't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that same story, it's Scars, the one about the rat.
Oh, Okay.
What did you bring to that? Since you helped me with you edited the same story.
Well, first off, I'd like to have Dr. Wright.
Yeah,
talk
we
about
haven't let
his,
him.
Because Dr. Wright, you have experience editing as well. You were telling us.
Yeah,
about that.
go over that. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I consider this your show, so I just kind of let you guys do what you want.
Part of it.
Well, I appreciate that. I did, I do freelance editing, and I did it for self-published books for a long time. I offered it on, I think it was like Triple K or something like that. It's basically an Amazon board where they put up a lot of those services where I do a lot of Kindle work and everything. But I'm kind of along the same lines as Professor Geek. The first thing I really want to do for a young writer, or, because usually that's what I find, is to find their own voice, because I find that a lot of people, when they begin writing, are writing just what they read last or what they liked last or something like that, and they don't really have what they want to say.
And
so go ahead.
And how do you help them find that? Just out of curiosity.
It kind of depends on the person. I was like trained in some forms of clinical psychology and that kind of thing, and I try to get into what they really want to write and provide enough negative space for them to figure it out themselves and then come to the conclusion, and then they'll say, "Oh, I want to do this." And I'm like, "Well, that's such a good idea."
Well, that's an extremely, extremely good point, because I think often that is the hardest part of any story, is really locating the core of what it is thematically you're getting at. Usually when I come at a story, there's like a million ideas and a million different themes in my head, and I know the direction, the course, and the plotting.
Mm-hmm.
But usually it's until I'm well into the process that I finally figure out, okay, what's the story really about? So what would you say? You said you provide the negative space. Yeah.
What I mean by that is I will give them something to aspire towards.
Oh, okay.
And then I'll say, okay, this is the kind of thing you want to do, what you want to have as a central theme. That's going to be the spine of your story. You want everything else to kind of revolve around that. The sort of like allegory that I tell for that is this old allegory that my dad used to tell me, where it's like, two shipwrecked engineers, were on an island. They found a resistor. And, these guys were electrical engineers, and they found one resistor, and both of them said, okay, from this, we can build everything around it, because we know it so well. We know the structure of what we're creating. They wanted to make a radio so well that we can build everything around this. And, you want to know your story that well. And you also want to be able to, find that central spine, though, is what I always say. Because I think every good story begins, in my opinion, this is just me, obviously, you guys, we each have our own different method, but for me, it begins with like a theme or a spine, and then I tell them, all right, now from there you can branch out. And a lot of times, that's how I try to keep continuity. And then I have my own rules and stuff. I don't know if you guys have that, but I kind of have rules of what I'll allow in my my sense of disbelief budget.
Mm-hmm. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah,
Totally.
we actually have a term for that.
Oh, what's that?
Tipping the goofy meter.
Mm-hmm.
I use.
Yeah, basically my rule of thumb is that if you solve a problem in the story from within the story, then you're okay, and it becomes more creative. If you have to be like Ryan Johnson and implement something that never existed in order for the story to work, and it is not in your continuity anywhere, it's probably not a good idea.
What if you explain it after the movie's already out or the story's already published? Then you can go back and explain what this character was actually doing.
Well,
there.
then you've made $4 billion on 500,000 books sold, and you're telling your bagger that a random character was gay, and he's like, I just wanted to know if you wanted plastic, lady.
Yeah, I would say one thing for the audience to keep in mind is this show is about writing well, not getting rich. Conning people is a completely different art, and it does not require being a good writer.
Completely different skill set.
Yeah, being a good con artist and getting people to pay you for a thing like The Last Jedi. Everything Tom King's writing is a completely different art.
Yeah. But I have to say, I think this is true. That with writing, one of the ways I can always, because the fisherman knows another fisherman, right? And one of the ways I can always tell if somebody's a good writer, unless they're, and even if they're shy, it's okay. Like, because in an interpersonal communication, I can get it, is if they have the gift of gab. Because I do think you have to be able to put sentences together. You have to be able to talk. You have to be able to like communicate, because that's, what you're doing is essentially a translation. What you have in your head is not what the people are going to see.
Mhm.
So you have to put that in a meeting that the both of you can translate the same thing from it. You know what I mean? And because of that, like, that takes a certain mindset, and you have to be able to do that. You've got to be able to explain. And I mean, I remember I used to teach myself writing. I used to, when I go on my runs, I would narrate in my head around me.
Really? That's
a good tool.
no, I do the exact same thing.
You mean like
run?
what people are saying, like that you pass by? Is that what you mean? Or
Yeah, just like, like a third person narration, like, I'm running down and
okay.
somebody leaps in front of in front of me or in the road, almost hits me, and I'll say, the gentleman, briskly ran outside and nearly hit the the man passing by him on the corner. And it's like, okay, or something a little more eloquent, but like that. Yeah. And just kind of to do that. And I mean, even, and I got into the habit of telling myself, like, look, it doesn't have to be perfect, or I'd be there forever. I literally would stop and be like, no, I don't like that sentence. How do I do that again?
That thing where you're really in the writing groove and mindset when suddenly smells and sounds and actions and everything you do around you is accompanied with descriptors in your head.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very eloquent, very poetic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Another fun one I like to do is I'll go places with notebooks and just start describing everything and writing them down, and then I'll actually keep the best parts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I tell people very often, and this is one part of editing too, is I'm like, look, if you want to write and you want to write professionally in any capacity, even if you want to crowdfund a comic book or a book or whatever, if you want to write in any professional capacity, you have to treat it professionally, which means you need to make a dedicated effort to do it every day. And I always tell myself, like, I mean, I work 60 hours a week, a couple weeks this summer, I've worked 75. So, I work a lot, and plus I'm doing everything else. And I just tell people, like, look, even if it's just a poem, do something creative every day.
Yeah, I would second that. It takes discipline, but if you're like writing a novel or a short story,
Mhm.
at least do a few sentences.
Yeah,
It does not matter if there's just a little bit every day.
exactly. Or just an idea, like the idea of what you're thinking, the idea, like, a lot of times you don't quite know what to say, but either how you want to say it, or the kind of the trajectory that it's going, and you can write that down, and it'll help you eventually. Because the thing is like, our minds work well, not all of us, but a lot of us work. If you say that I'm going to do this and then you don't feel completed, and so you actually, like, you don't mean to, but you do think less of yourself. And then that keeps building and building, huh?
Because you're not realizing your goals.
Exactly. It's, I mean, you're talking about like self-actualization and that kind of thing. And since you are not at least attempting to do that, then you feel, and you can say that you don't all you want, you do. It's been tested. You feel your cortisone starts firing through, your dopamine's not meeting your dendrite receptacles, and you don't feel like you've completed something. Because when we complete something, when we when we've done what we set out to do, we're like, yeah, that's good. And you want that feeling every day.
Okay, I'm gonna say something completely honest here.
Sure.
That is sometimes true. when I finished the story Scars, which has yet to be published,
Mhm.
I really felt like a sense of accomplishment. I told a story that I had to tell. On the other hand, when I finished the first case file Arkham, my feeling after spending an entire year bashing my head into the wall writing that was, fuck the story. Fuck it.
Well,
Fuck
no,
it to hell. I don't want to even touch it. And
I
that
think
was,
that is too, but like you still feel accomplished.
oh, yeah.
What happened was, like he said that he was going to take a complete break, and that break lasted all of a week.
Yeah, I've done that. You know what? I don't know if has the audience seen his main or his like script, the way he scripts things for Case File Arkham, because I think that is the most interesting.
He's insanely detailed, isn't he? I'm
That
so
is the
in awe
most
of that.
interesting thing I've ever seen.
Thank you.
I mean, that is just I'm like, holy crap! This is like a collage, turned into a science.
Yeah. It's like the auteur of the creator to the max.
Yeah, well, you know what's funny is
Yeah.
I remember listening to World Class Bullshitters one morning, and the guy that I'm sorry, dude, I don't know all your names. I know the first one's Jeff, like the main guy's Jeff, and Jeff went to school for like marketing and advertising or something, but he took a comic book class, and one of the things that struck me was interesting was that he didn't understand one of the things his teachers was doing, because his teachers, I thought, did a brilliant. They gave him a brilliant assignment, and he didn't understand what was going on. They wanted him to make a comic book out of pieces of magazines, right? Basically make a comic book out of a collage, right? Turn a collage into a comic book. And I was like, that's brilliant, because what he's trying to teach you is to visually narrate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a brilliant, and I would recommend that if you're having a problem writing a comic book, and that's why I like what you did, because I think anybody that had a problem turning prose into visual narration, and that's a whole other story. Sorry, guys, but could really benefit from that.
Well, we were actually going to talk about tonight. The plan had been about doing the visual aspect of writing scripts and doing the layout, and we were going to actually bring my scripts into it.
Mm-hmm.
But things had been so busy today. Kat mentioned the air conditioner. I did not have a chance to gather all the materials needed to do that. I would need to bring in visuals to show the audience what we're talking about. So,
yeah, I can completely understand that. I mean, I'm sure it is a bit of a labor on your part, but I'm just saying that if and when
we'll do it,
you have the time to do that, like, and we bring that, I think that would be a great boon to any person who is translating, like I said, their head or what they have in a script to an actual visual narration, because it is a big difference, and there's things there are things that are told in not in the words, but in the form, in the gesture, in the placement, all that kind of stuff.
I find that, just to turn it towards editing here, if you don't mind me jumping in real quick, Ishii, along with going along those lines of thinking visually, one of the things that I'll have to frequently remind people on the manuscripts they send me is to think visually, yes, but if you're writing a comic, think static visuals, because a lot of times I'll get like panel 2 description, and they'll be describing a scene, like first he's over here and then he catches that, but then he touches his foot, and I was like, there's like 5 panels worth of action in that one description, that you're not writing a script for a film.
Are you describing the hokey pokey?
Yeah, pretty much.
No, I once got a script that I was trying to teach someone how to write for visual, and he could not wrap his head around the fact that you couldn't write a panel that said, man picks up a coin and looks at it.
Yeah.
It's like, that's at least 2 panels.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, what I've done in the past is, ask the person, okay, the scene that you're describing here, draw it for me in stick figure. and see if they can do it. And that, forcing, this way, there's no barrier of, well, I'm a writer, I'm not an artist. That's okay. Anybody can do a stick figure. So just, okay, draw for me in stick figure these actions. And I found that that's a very effective way of getting someone to start thinking in, like you said, in static in static images. How little you can actually convey in one panel versus a moving scene like a movie. And I know that is a hard habit for a lot of people to break out of, is not thinking like a movie. But if you have them do that exercise, it at least stays in the back of their mind.
Well, I've got this whole list of reasons why I need an editor or why I think people should use them. But what's interesting is you brought up one of the this actually goes right into one of the reasons you need an editor, even if you're not just for writing prose, but comics, is someone who's a visual editor who can actually come in and say, this panel to this panel doesn't have continuity. These sorts of things you're describing are what a comic book editor would do.
Well, I do both. So, things like if the background in panel 2 shows a door and panel 3 is pretty much the same angle, we should still see that door.
Well, yeah, I remember, I won't name any names, but we were doing a project. And I was looking at it, and at first glance, I thought all the artwork we were getting was great. And you leaned in and said, these 3 panels each take place in a different city.
Yeah. And yes, the figures themselves looked gorgeous. But
the moment you actually looked behind the person, you're like, wait, this person who's standing on top of a building is standing on 3 different buildings with 3 different backgrounds.
Gotcha. Yeah. So no continuity there.
You need an editor to do that, because that's the editor's job, is just literally go through and tear it apart and find those errors, because people will notice, and even if they don't, their brain will. And I wouldn't, and to anyone who thinks, oh God, no, I must suck. No, this happens to everyone.
Yeah.
When Kat and I were illustrating a story for DC, the script writer, and this was kind of one of the things we had to go to the editor and work through. He said, the script writer wants us to do a worm's eye view of a doormat, but be able to read what the doormat says.
Wait a minute.
And we said, that's not possible.
Yeah.
And the editor took care of it. I mean, that is one of the reasons you need an editor. Another thing in terms of comics is having Kat as an editor often served as kind of a, not a mediator, but someone to look over the shoulder of my interaction with the artist and start really, okay, so you guys are missing this, or
I got to be bad guy.
That too. But
I don't mind being bad guy.
well, true. But you were the one that would come in. And you would,
I love it. She's like, I don't mind.
well, hey, that's actually one of the nice things about working with Kat is we sleep in the same bed, but you know, when she's editing my work, she is editing my work.
But I'm not editing that work. Anyway.
But bump.
Anyway, Professor, have you worked with with your work with your comic? Did you edit your stories, or did you have any experiences editing the graphic images?
I was actually pretty lucky with my comic, because I'm drawing on stories that were actually all a part of my MFA thesis, so they have been well put through the ringer, in story form. Then, though, I did have to take them and translate them, to visual images. And at first, I was thinking, well, who am I going to, I'm just maybe going to send some to Ishii and stuff like that. But one of my professors did have some expertise, or some experience rather, in doing graphic narratives, and he was kind enough to take a look at look at them for me as well. So I did have them go through, but I was able to kind of cash in some chips with old professors and stuff like that. But Ishii's still, Ishii's lettering for me, and now and then he'll catch things that still he's like these because I'm sending him the art kind of fresh as it comes.
Yeah, that's actually, yeah. In a sense, I did kind of act as an editor in that regard, didn't I?
Exactly. Yeah, you'll catch things like that. Yeah.
Well, there were those 2 panels where I said where the script, the characters weren't saying anything,
Mhm.
but the way they were drawn, it looked like they were engaging in a conversation. And I said, it's either one or the other. Either they're going to be redrawn or they're going to say something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was kind of a happy accident because it just kind of added to it.
Yeah, I think it added to it as well. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was a nice catch.
But okay. I guess just my list of why you need an editor. First and foremost, the editor will keep you on track and focused. Often, I can have a tendency to get lost in the weeds of my own writing, getting lost in descriptions or details that aren't important. Editor will come in and say, no, cut that.
Mm-hmm.
Or that doesn't belong there. That needs to go somewhere else. The obvious one, finding plot holes and continuity errors. Everybody needs someone to do that. And as we mentioned, that includes visual errors. Telling what to cut and what to rearrange. Kat's very, very good. And I suggest you are too, Professor, with my experience with you, is suggesting directions I hadn't considered.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there'll be something building in the plot that I've set up and it didn't occur to me. It's like, oh, well, I thought you were going this way. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess I should consider that.
Mm-hmm.
Something I think a lot of early or new writers need is help avoiding cliches. That is one of the hardest things to do right now in our culture.
Yeah.
Avoiding cliches. So much of comics writing or just pop writing in general is so immersed in pop culture references and certain plot lines that it's really easy to fall into that. And I mean, I don't know. Would you guys have anything to say about that?
Ooh. I mean, there's a right time and a wrong time to use cliches. Like, sometimes you can use them, ironically, basically.
Oh yeah.
When there's kind of a meta purpose to it, it's sort of like an untrusty narrator, or something like that, or a self-insert rather. There's some people that they put themselves in a book because of vanity, right? Like, look at me, I'm awesome. There's a couple of comics out there in the indie sphere that are like that. But we're not going to name names. So there's that, and I think that when you do that, man, I almost immediately don't care about the book. because if you're going to put yourself in your story and you can't even divorce yourself from a story enough to create a different character for it, then I mean, if you're that lazy, then what's the rest of your storytelling going to be? Is it going to be based on a movie? You can have Ghostbuster dogs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of like, okay. I mean, you've sort of, because I have with Sins of the Fae, it's an extremely robust, very in-depth kind of politics and magic system and people and blah blah blah, but it started with just a basic theme, and then like I said, I kind of wrapped around that, and then I would just write for the main story, because I wanted the other characters to have more plot and depth. I wrote short stories for them just so I'd have it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let me catch this super chat real quick. I just want to thank David Deister. He's echoing a sentiment from Hendrix here that why do editors matter? Because editors need to eat, and I'll second that. I need to eat. The prof needs his pizza, so hire us.
Yeah, man. I need my sushi. Yeah.
And David's also been listing some cool alternate writers and artists to be on the DC universe, which sound pretty good. I just wanted to shout him out there. But yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. Were you done on the cliche thing? Because I don't want to take it away from you. I just wanted to get that.
Yeah, I mean, well, I would just say that, it is, the problem with cliches is that it is low-hanging fruit. It's not that they're necessarily bad. but they're cliches because, you know, everybody uses them. So, you know, try to say like one of the biggest things that people say is, I was sweating like a dog. And it's like, okay, for one, if you think about that thematically, it makes no sense. You know, and you're like, okay, what, like, because that's the thing is anything you say that you're describing has to make it has to have some thematic sense. It either has to make sense for what it is to the characters or what it is to people, right? Because this is a translation again, right?
Mhm.
Of your ideas to someone else. So if you're saying that, what does that mean? You know?
Yeah. One of the things I tell people about, you know, when it comes to cliches too, is that because I'll edit, you know, as Kat does as well, both prose and for comic scripts. But even if it's a comic script, okay, you're doing this because you want to tell a story, but there's a reason you're writing this script and not shooting you know, images with a camera, because you're telling this through language. Language is your tool. And if you know, if someone comes to your you know, to fix something in your house and all they do is bring shoddy, overused, you know, unkept, you know, tools or whatever, then it's not, you know, they're not going to do a great job. And you as one who uses language as a tool, then you need to be able to use fresh ways to convey things. Not, you know, just fresh for the sake of freshness, and so you can be, oh, look at that, isn't that cool way I said that? Because, you know, if no one says it like that, then that's not really going to work either. But, you know, your tool is the language, even if it's just the language of a caption box or the language of dialogue, you know. So yeah, avoiding those cliches unless you've got a character who truly would speak in this cliche, and even then, you know, it's questionable. But yeah, just paying attention to what you use, what your stuff of creation is as a writer, which is the language.
Well, I mean, it's not just a language. I mean, I think probably one of the worst crimes we're looking at right now that, again, an editor would catch would be character cliches.
Oh, that too, yeah.
I mean, one of the worst I think currently we see is the black nerd genius who everyone underestimates.
The tokens, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that started in the 90s. It was like, you know, and our computer hacker listens to hip hop.
And it's a personal bias. I will 100% admit that. That's pretty bad. The Dwayne character. I that is definitely up there. But
the angry that won't take nobody's crap.
Strangely, I don't read many of those. No, the one I consider an unforgivable sin is the sexist male for no reason other than to have a sexist male.
Yeah, he's a heavy, right? Just
Giggity.
Well, no, yeah, just other than, you know, my character needs to be oppressed in this scene, so insert sexist male. It's like, why? Could you really not think of anything else for character development? Because it's usually used as a way of developing your female protagonist, and it's such a cliche, and that will immediately put the brakes on my reading. I'm like, nope, stop.
Yeah, there has been this trend also that there's in comics, especially, I would say DC. Well, no, Marvel's pretty guilty of this too.
Everybody's
guilty. That if someone is a redneck, they're evil incarnate.
Oh, yep.
I mean, come on, rednecks are like everybody else, you know. I mean, maybe they yeah, it's just an aspect of Americana. You know, rednecks are not born racist, hideous people who want to shoot you with their gun and then marry their sister. You know,
well, obviously, you have not been to West Virginia.
I was just seriously, I think that needs to go.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree. I mean, there are quite a few. You know, I got to say, I've been playing this. I had played this video game. What is it? Fire Emblem Three Houses, and it's got some of the best hidden tropes and cliches you've ever seen. Like, I mean, this is a master class on how to do a cliche well, because it's there if you really look for it, but they create and like layer the characters so well you don't see it. Like there's the whole Three Houses thing is there's like three people. There's two guys and a girl, And one of the guys is blonde hair, blue eyed, right? White guy, obviously. And he's, he's an emo whiny boy, more or less. He's supposed to have PTSD and all this other stuff. And because, but the thing is, he watched his parents like burn alive. So he has this kind of traumatic, but he, there are all different kinds of ways that you can come out of that, right? Well, he comes out of it like with just pure rage. Like he's not broken. He wants to kill everything. He wants to burn everything. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you break it down, what is it? It's the whiny emo boy.
Mm-hmm.
And what is it that he's fighting against? That, they're all meeting at this school to go to school together, but they all have their own like plans they're concocting against each other. And, what does he want? Well, the girl he thinks did him wrong. The girl that is I don't need no man, take no, prisoners, gonna do what she wants, which again is a cliche, right? But the way it's constructed is extremely well. So you don't if you, in a lesser story, like you would see that immediately.
Yeah.
But in a great story that's layered and has all these pieces to it, you're like, I'll forgive it.
David Deister, thank you for $2 again. This is Nintendo, the master of hidden cliches.
Probably. But I was actually really amazed at how well constructed, this was. But if you break it down, it is really the woman who takes no shit, who's just gonna get stuff done, right? And then the whiny emo boy who thinks the woman did him wrong. Right. And then even more is like, okay, there's a centralized socialism in the game. And that's what the woman is fighting against, is because the economy is not like in a world where people where like gods give magical powers randomly.
Yeah.
The economy is not based on money. It's based on who gets those powers, because they're going to be the ones making money.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's the economy. And the whole point is that like she doesn't like that these gods are giving it out to just anybody. And so, the humans like rail against it, and they hate it so much that monsters that they consider control, their ability to have or have not, this power, that they defile themselves and become unhuman in order to, defy the gods themselves, which is again, like a big trope, a cliche that's done quite a bit in especially Japanese literature. But I thought it, because it's layered and it's enveloped in all these other things, it's done well.
One that kind of comes to me is I recently found out that The Last Starfighter was really supposed to be King Arthur in space.
Oh, nice.
And the fact that I didn't realize it when I watched it, but yet the moment you hear that
Makes total sense.
The sword and the stone,
Yeah.
it's like, that works. Yeah, totally. And the fact that it's not obvious, that they did it so smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
It definitely is a big chunk of 80s cheese, but it was an enjoyable film, and it does not obviously come off as King Arthur in space.
Yeah.
That's the plot.
That's really cool. I like that. I have to go back and rewatch that now.
Yeah, it's not like, when you see Speed and then you see, what is it, the movie with, I can't remember, Steven Seagal, and he's like on a boat, Under Siege.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's Speed on a military boat. Man, they did Speed so many ways. Speed on a plane.
Die Hard, but
Plane
it's in
with
a building.
Yeah.
I was waiting until Speed on a plane with snakes and dragons.
That sounds so awful. I'd go see it.
Yeah.
That's like, that sounds like a Shadowrun universe, which we've talked before about how that's just like, that's like the McDonald's of cyberpunk.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Shadowrun.
No.
But that's for another time.
You're like, we don't have time for meat.
It's so off topic, and I would have so much to say. I think we got a super chat that we missed.
I caught it, the Nintendo one, yeah.
I didn't. Well, should we read it or did you read it?
Yeah, Nintendo, the master of hidden cliches.
Oh,
Yeah,
he read it.
Dr. Wright.
Oh, that's great. I'm already missing things. That's wonderful.
That you bring it up and it's already been said, then otherwise.
Exactly.
But I would say that the number one thing that Kat does as my editor, and this is just pulling it back to the editor, the most valuable thing Kat does is question my ideas and put them through the Adventures in Awful test. Nicer, of course. And the reason being,
I can be nice.
well, yeah, you don't savage my work. You're just brutally honest. But by having someone that confronts me and really questions why the things are happening as they are, why the fantastical world elements as they are, it really causes me to look twice, rethink them, find what doesn't work, what really is the weak part of it, and what needs to be redirected or focused or honed. And that is the most valuable aspect, I would say, that her editing brings.
Well, one thing I think a lot of writers need, going back to a subject that was brought up earlier, is, again, somebody outside of their friends, their family, their life circle to take a look at their work and scrutinize it and ask questions. And and sometimes it's simply a case of what did you mean by doing XYZ? If you have this, then why not this? Just asking the tough questions. And sometimes they can be very tough. But I think it's also good, like a book I recently finished editing. There was a question where I had to ask, but I was horrified that I might piss off my client when I had to ask him, because the character was doing some things that were questionable. And so I had to ask him, did you mean for this character to be a psychopath? I couldn't think of any better way to say it, so I just came out and said it. And it turned out he goes, yes, that's exactly what I meant. And I thought, oh, that's great, because the way he had written the character, it wasn't clear. So now it's okay. This is what you need to do to make that more clear to the audience, that's this character's motivation. And in his mind, he had been making it clear, but it wasn't. It was too subtle. And that's the other thing. Are you going for subtlety? Are you going for in your face? But an editor will ask those questions to help you to develop your world for, again, somebody who's outside of your head. So.
Yeah, and like I said, like we said before, or I don't know if you guys agreed with it or not, but to me, like, it's any work that you do, like I said, is a translation, because it's not exactly what's in your head. It's what you're putting on a piece of paper or in the computer or whatever for somebody else to see, and they have to be able to interpret that in somewhat the way you do. So it needs to be, it needs to be without as many, with as few barriers as possible, barriers to entry to your mind. And I think that is one of the issues with writing, what I call writing to an agenda, because having a theme and writing to an agenda are not the same thing.
I would say they're the antithesis. Yeah.
When you are, I actually made a video on my, I have a YouTube channel. I never do anything on it, but I made a video on it that say, don't write to an agenda. And it's because you can tell, like, for say, like The Last Jedi, you can tell that The Last Jedi does not want to tell a story. It doesn't want to be entertaining. It wants to teach you. And that's the problem.
Yeah.
It wants to instruct you on how to be moral. And anything that tries to instruct me on how to be moral, excuse the demonetization, but fuck you.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need you to teach me morality. Okay. If you're going to be a TV personality, a radio personality on YouTube, if you're going to be, put out a comic book or whatever you're going to Don't teach me something. If you want to teach something in the way that your character goes through a harrowing event and people relate to that because there is verisimilitude, and they say, oh my goodness, I'm so into this character, it makes me think about my own life and reflect upon things, then you've written something great. Okay? But if you are telling me Orange Man bad and capitalism bad, then just F off.
Oh, absolutely. Kind of interestingly enough, there were a few the interesting thing about McCarthyism and the Red Scare of the 50s was once this actually didn't get covered nearly enough, that once the Soviet Union fell and a lot of those files got released and Russia, a lot of that information became readily available. It was actually shocking to find out how many of those people really were working.
Yeah, it was true.
But what was interesting was a lot of the films that then you found out were trying to have communist messages in them. The writers who did them were so talented and so focused on the writing first and were appealing to universal themes that a lot of people saw the films as, I don't see a shred of communism in this.
Yeah.
Was it Shane that was supposed to be a communist message?
Yeah, I think
And it was like, no, it's not there, you guys. You failed.
Well, I mean, it's like I think this game is a sort of that's what I was saying. Like, I think it's sort of in a very subversive way saying socialism is bad because that's the overall theme. Because there's there's a centralized economy that they want to break down and put it into the hands of the people.
But see, it's a story element. It's not just telling you, it's showing. It's
exactly.
That is their world. And if you see something in it and you see it relate to what's happening around you, you have that idea in your head now of, well, this is a possible way this could function. It could function like the story I read. Reality will eventually show you whether or not. But yeah, if you write to principles and values and truths rather than agendas, you're writing fiction. If you're writing an agenda, forget it.
Yeah, I go to, write for Western Union.
I would say that is probably a lot of people will disagree with me on this, but Ayn Rand was a good writer. I think her weakest point was that she was writing to educate.
Yeah,
she was a brilliant writer. There's no questioning that, but she was absolutely wanting to impose her own morality on everyone.
Yeah, and that was the weakest aspect of her writing. Where conversely, Heinlein's Starship Troopers was essentially pushing a similar message, I think a far better one, about responsibility. It's not fascist, regardless of what anyone says. It's not a fascist book at all. But he wrote a story first, and he let the politics of the world and the culture of that setting speak for itself. And so even if you don't agree with any of it, it's still a very enjoyable book.
Yeah, I mean, the movie I thought did a decent job of that, but it was so subtle, people didn't get it.
No, the movie really, the two, was it?
The movie's not the
Verhoeven and, was it Neumeier, I think his name is, or I forget, really were trying to come at it with an agenda of an anti-fascist movie, and they failed. But they utterly failed.
They gave us the shower scene, though, so thank God for that.
Well, no, think about it. They're trying to create a fascist civilization.
There was a dude that shot a hole in a bug and threw a grenade down the hole. I was happy at whatever age.
But you're absolutely right. Yeah, it is a turnoff like that. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I'm looking in the chat, and what's really bizarre here is we're talking about literature and editing and fiction, and I keep seeing things like boobs and KKK and Playboy bunny girl jumping out of cake. I mean, what the hell's going on here?
I didn't see KKK, but the boobs and Playboy bunny girl, it is my channel, so.
I see Hendrix saying
Al's not even on talking about corn dogs. I mean, what's going on here?
Well, that's when you know you got a good chat. They start talking to each other. Hendrix says, I don't know. I got more vibes of anti-theocracy and organized religion from FE3 houses. Didn't focus so much on the centralized economy. I think that's because maybe you're not familiar with the older games. Like the whole series is based on there are these like dragon gods and they always do bad because they always just want to end the world and take it into a different realm or destroy it or blah, blah. In this particular one, they've come in and they've sort of they brought peace, but the way they brought peace is by distributing power. Okay, and like I said, if you're distributing power from a centralized position, that is socialism. Okay, because what it truly is the center. The center is what actually owns the power. The fact that they are monsters, is not like they all know, and two factions don't care. And the other faction is like, well, it sort of takes like, was it like Luthor in the way Lex Luthor is in the later comic books of Superman, where he's humanist. The reason why he hates Superman so much is because Superman solves too many problems, and he thinks that humanity could be better or would be better if he wasn't there, because necessity would breed invention. Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, there is a real argument to be made that if gods are among men, men become children.
Yeah, and that's
and that's I think why we all like Batman so much is that even though among these gods he's still
human.
He's still a man capable of his own destiny. I think that's one of the things that really appeals, even if we don't realize it. Somebody had asked the professor what his favorite tropes were.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that. It depends on the genre, really.
Yeah, it's I can't. I'm sorry. His name's Muhammad. I can't read the first name.
We just call him Muhammad. He's never told us how to pronounce his first name, so we just say Muhammad. He's our guy.
What's your favorite trope? Mine is the ultimate evil trope, like Sauron or the Crimson King. That's directed to you, but I suppose we all could answer that.
Yeah, I think he's asking for everybody. Yeah. See, the thing about tropes for me is they're they can be used in a bad way. You don't want to overly rely on them, but when especially when you're going through from genre to genre, they are part of the tools in your box, and sometimes they're part of the expectations that the readers will have. And on the one hand, you don't want to just play to nothing but expectations, but we've all learned what happens when you just do nothing but subvert them too. So yeah, I don't know if I could pick a single one favorite though.
How about you, Kat?
Vampires, real ones. I love vampires.
Oh, are we talking a good or a negative trope?
I thought you said your favorite.
Oh, favorite trope. Okay.
I love vampires, but real ones, not like sparkly kind and not like dumb kind. I mean, like, no, give me good blood-sucking predators. And as a predator, they use every tool in that box, whether it's sexual, whether it's stalking. I don't care. I want me a blood-sucking predator. And yes, if he's sexy, that's double the points there.
I have one of those. He's all okay. One of the main protagonists in my story is a vampire King Arthur that's black.
That's interesting.
I know.
Serious question. Is it satire?
No, he's just. I like taking tropes and different mythologies and everything and kind of putting them on their head and mixing them up. And I wanted anything to exist in the world. So the characters, like the King Arthur ideal is different. I've kind of worked on the whole Pendragon as being, there were 5 elder dragons and the 5th stayed because they were always supposed to protect humanity. They were what people considered angels, but then the humans began to fear them. So they left, and they left one that would be reborn in the soul of a man every so many years, and that was the 5th elder dragon, the Pendragon. And he is what happens is the Excalibur is not a sword, it's an ability. He can use any weapon as if he was an expert. And so many years later, Charles J. Walker is a black man in 1920s, and he's going to the Pacific Theater of war, and he doesn't want to kill. He's actually a medic, but he's so good at it, he keeps doing it. And then he comes back with PTSD. He wants to solve it, and the vampire mistress knows what he is, and so she bites him because she wants to train him to kill her for a reason.
Wow. When is this coming out?
I don't, I'm working on it. That's the character in the picture that's I'm talking with.
I agree, QWERTY. Ginger Snaps was a great movie. My favorite trope, I don't know if it's a favorite, but it's the one that I think I fall back on the most, and it's probably just because I live it, and that is the character with nightmares. Mm-hmm. It's kind of become a theme no matter what I do. I've realized it was one of those, I look back and I start looking at all my work and go, oh, I keep writing this. Why?
Oh, the troubled sleep.
Yeah, people who can't sleep well. Chronic nightmares, troubled sleep.
That is a good point. That is something that editors or even beta readers and everything like that will want to point out to you, because as writers, you're a lot of people in the chat are still talking about the story and preaching it kind of thing, but they're saying great things. But the thing is, story is, if you tell a story to somebody, if it's done well, it's going to teach them something, because story is our human way of bringing out our struggles and recontextualizing them into a narrative, trying out, different things with them, different possibilities, this and that. I mean, a story is, by its nature, it's going to teach something. Yeah, even, whether that's, a nice little bow on a moral, but usually not. Usually it's more something like, Dr. Wright was saying, you identify with this character, or there's some catharsis in it or something like that. So stories do teach. And as writers, we really are kind of obsessed with getting out our own demons, even if we don't mean to be doing it. So you see a writer's themes, and this writer just constantly uses this one thing over and over and over again. And that's natural as a writer, but it does take your editors and people to say, maybe you shouldn't write a fifth story with this exact character with just a different name.
Like I love Doug TenNapel, but Earthworm Jim, Bigfoot Bill, and Creature Tech are the same character.
Well, he's kind of doing a different type of writing. So we're not talking. He's got a
okay. I got one. Neil Gaiman. Dream Form.
Okay, I'm going to be vicious. I thought Neil Gaiman was awesome in high school. In high school, I so dug the Sandman, and then I went back after college. Man, this is really high school shit.
It's very whiny emo.
Yeah, as I realized, you know
who makes fun of that? Like in a hilarious way that nobody noticed. Christopher Priest.
Sorry.
Christopher Priest, he wrote like was it Black Panther and Vampirella most recently is what he's writing. And in the first issue of Vampirella, he talks about there's this one demon that always it's a servant of Vampirella's mother, and it usually inhabits the bodies of pests. And so funnily, amusingly enough, in the near the end of the book, the first character that you see this demon inhabiting is what looks to be Neil Gaiman circa 1980 in his Sandman outfit.
Well, here's something kind of creepy, okay, about Gaiman.
Sure.
As you start looking through all his writing and all these themes about people, and then there's this second world of gods inhabiting them and making them do things, and spirits making them do things. He's a Scientologist.
I never suspected that. Wow.
He was raised as a Scientologist, and apparently he's been very quiet about his relations to the church.
I did not know that. Wow.
I mean, I know he was like super liberal because he married what's her name?
Crazy chick,
Amanda Palmer, who, I mean, she, I love some of her music, but she's a little freaky.
I've always really been impressed with. I mean, Neil Gaiman's a writer who can truly truly impressed me. Not everything he writes though, and I haven't read The Sandman probably since I was a young 20-something. So I'd like to go back and read that now, like you're saying, Ishi, and see if I have a different experience. But sometimes like there's some novels like The Ocean at the End of the Lane and stuff like that where I'm like, wow, man, he's really getting us some great resonance. Sometimes I'll come across a short story and I'm like, you just phoned that in on your name because you're Neil Gaiman. I mean, it's just.
Well, I mean, he wrote like a children's book, which was, or he wrote one book recently that I remember listening to it and going, this isn't really all that great. And he said he wrote it as like a sister book to the Jungle Book. It's called The Graveyard Book.
What?
Oh yeah. The Graveyard. Is it called The Great? No, that's not. No, I'm talking about a novel, not a children's book. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of the wrong thing.
It is a novel. It's called The Graveyard Book, but he wrote it as a sister novel or book or whatever to the Jungle Book. Is
this the one where the boy is raised by ghosts in the graveyard?
Yep.
I actually kind of like that. I thought that was pretty good myself. It was. He does this thing a lot where he tells like it's sort of a novel in novellas.
Yeah, but I mean, it was very like, it's very tropey.
Mm-hmm.
Is very like I said, cliche. And the character was never really in any danger.
It's a fairy tale.
Yeah, it is definitely a fairy tale. It is. I don't know if I would even say fairy tale. What is it? Oh, there was a great quote by my friend Kimberly, which was by I think Jack Zipes or something like that. Like a guy, a PhD in English that studies fairy tales all of his life. And he said that, fairy tales essentially were folk tales about survival.
Largely, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I guess so in that sense it is, because that is what the book is about. It's about, the kids surviving, obviously,
A lot of fairy tales, if they weren't humor and farce, they were meant to educate in one way or another. And that's why you tell them to children and why so many of them are horrific and awful. One of my favorites, Hansel and Gretel, about famine, abandonment, and cannibalism. Mm-hmm. And you got to wonder what the real roots of that story are. Clearly something probably spurred all of that. Clearly there were plenty of famines, and I'm guessing in the German forest they had cannibals of some sort. Red Riding Hood's pretty obvious, especially the French version, that it's about adolescent girls being careful about not having sex with the first wolf who draws their eye.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why, who was it? Why am I blanking on all these names?
I really
Angela Carter.
Huh?
Angela Carter. That's why Angela Carter of the 70s rewrote it to be about making virginity a weapon instead of a weakness.
Interesting.
You never heard that?
No, I haven't.
The Carnivore Incarnate. I think it's like Company of Wolves, I think is the name of it. And she rewrote like a lot of the fairy tales to kind of empower like sexuality instead of hiding it or it being, but these were back in the days when like feminists were feminists and not just
I don't know. I would say that they went off the 70s is exactly when they went off the rails, when we got
I mean, it's possible, but she was a damn good writer. I mean, let me tell you, Anne Sexton, she can be as feminist as she wants. When she reads something, I'm like, I will do anything you want.
I don't know if I buy her being a feminist, really. Anne Sexton. I think they just claimed her just like they claimed Plath.
Very well could be.
But now, anyway, this is off topic. Now,
I know. Sorry, guys. This is what writers do. We digress.
Well, that's actually one of the reasons I wanted to do this show every 2 weeks, was that clearly we're going to start here talking about editing, and we've gone off the rails to talk about the process of writing and the meaning of various stories and the roots of fairy tales and our favorite cliches. And
yeah.
Can I just say one more thing about the editing? I mean, people who would need an editor.
Bring it back on topic as much as you like.
Well, we were joking a little bit before the stream about those people who say, well, I don't need to, I don't want anybody else selling my vision or whatever. And Jake Quinlan, my channel troll, he did a great comment earlier. It's like, I don't want anybody to mess with my vision. My perfect draft is perfect the way it was. You know, that's the inspiration that was given to me, or something like that. And, you know, that we can kind of be silly about that and, you know, over the top, but that is something I think some writers worry about, especially if they've had bad experiences with grumpy editors or writing professors or teachers, even in school or whatever, who just wanted, you know, to conform everybody else's writing to their own, you know, style or taste or something like that. And that's not what a good editor should do. But there's also this idea, you know, that we talk a lot about writing and inspiration and your muse. And, you know, there's a great quote that I love by Henry David Thoreau. It says, write while the heat is in you. The writer who postpones the recording of his thoughts uses an iron which is cooled to burn a hole with. And, you know, there's something to be said for that. But that magic, that's something that inspiration that you capture on the page, if it's worth its salt, it's not going to go anywhere. It's about honing it and chipping away and polishing it. That's what the editor's there to help you with, not to completely rewrite your work and change. So that fear a lot of people might have in terms of giving it over or listening to somebody else's criticism on their work.
Really, the first thing I do when I've got that burning inspiration to get the ideas out, I just sit down and write everything. And then the next step is making sense of it and then building the story around it and deciding what's worth keeping and what's worth trashing.
Well, and you know, just to touch on a couple of points of what you said. First off, anybody who inserts their own agendas, their own politics into your writing, yeah, they're not a good editor. A good editor should be able to put their own bias aside and ask you the questions of what is it that you are trying to convey or tell in the story, and then help you to find the best way possible to achieve that goal. So if you do get an editor who's saying, no, this character isn't feminist enough, or, you know, inserting their own biases, get yourself a new editor, seriously. And second, I know it's going to be hard, especially for writers who are just starting out, and you have all these wonderful ideas and you have your vision of what you want. Don't be afraid of your editor taking a scalpel to your story and saying, sorry, this needs to be cut. This needs to be pared down. You know, basically, don't be afraid of your babies being killed by somebody else. I know the rule is always don't be afraid to kill your babies, but they are your babies still, and you can't look at it objectively. Now, you can discuss with your editor, well, I have these ideas in here because, and then the two of you can work out the best way, again, to achieve that goal. But keep in mind, some of your babies are going to die, but that's okay. You can save it for another manuscript or the next book or the next story. It's okay.
Hendrix, I'm going to put as much boobs in my stories as I want.
I'm going to put so many boobs in my story.
But actually, on that, bringing up the whole thing about bringing females into your plot, and that is one of the best things about having Kat as an editor. She is a perfect bullshit meter on whether or not a female reads real.
I'm just feminine enough to know what they do.
Well,
Like,
yeah,
this is the funniest way to put that, though, isn't it? She's a great bullshit meter, let me tell you.
No, seriously, it's like no, she'd do things like no woman would say that. Or
actually, he was asking me, well, you know, so how do girls talk? And so I went and I found a video of, strangely enough, Japanese flirtation. And I'm like, okay, this right here is exactly how girls flirt with you. And it's the mannerisms and the facial expressions. And yes, it's overly exaggerated, at least by Western standards, but it perfectly illustrated, you know, how flirty girls will act. So, well,
another example is, you know, currently in the story I'm writing, there's a scene in a red light district. And so I did a lot of research. And I decided to base it on the Thailand red light districts. And one thing I noticed while watching all the videos of what those streets look like was that all the women had this constant motion of flipping their compacts out and checking their makeup. So I wrote that action in. I had a character just on this in the scene while she's talking, do that. And then Kat said, no, they're not really checking their makeup. Well, that's not why they're flipping their compact out. And then she laid out all the reasons why a girl would flip out their compact. And it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. All right.
Yeah.
I'm bored with this conversation. I'm gonna, check my makeup. Like, oh, there's something more interesting behind me. I'm going that way now. Bye.
No exact change. Pornhub is thoroughly worthless for that topic. No, actually, it's amazing for doing research. YouTube sucks for a lot of things, but you can still do things like seriously, just type in Thailand red light district and you'll get videos of people walking down the street filming it. I mean, that's invaluable.
Yeah, that reminds me of I love looking at the psychology of humanity and stuff like that. So I watched this really great video. It was a trial of human mating rituals, basically. And this psychologist put a bunch of single, 20 to 30 or whatever women in a room, and they were just like there for a cocktail party. And it was just the women. And then he introduced the men, like 30 minutes later, single, same age men came to the party. And as soon as the men entered the room, like the camera shows, like each and every woman starts to flick their hair, just kind of flick their hair. It's just like in this, like this is the preening, that happens, and then the guys would do these certain things too, But yeah, taking into account some of those things, that's really great. But if you don't have the editor to point you in those directions, I don't know. I'm trying to tie it to editing, and I'm failing, so never mind.
Well, no, see, that's the kind of thing a second pair of eyes will bring to your work.
Yeah.
I mean, alternately, what I would say in regards to you is when I had entertained the idea of writing a superhero, you were the first person I went to say, okay, look, what are the cliches to avoid? What are the themes to really understand? How do I get to the core of what makes a real hero and what sets them apart? What's the mythology about it? And you were like excellent in really laying out that what makes a superhero mythos a superhero and not a villain, because that's one problem we're having right now is so many of our so-called superheroes are really psychopaths with powers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there was one critical question I had for you, which is, I want someone who's heroic, but what if they have to kill?
Mm-hmm.
And you were extremely helpful on that.
Oh, cool.
So, different editors for different things. And if anyone is writing a comic book or specifically trying to write a heroic character and build a mythology, you are the editor to talk to.
Well, thank you. Yes, I'm here.
And you can quote me on that.
That's right. I'm going to write that down. That's the Ishii endorsement I'm going to use.
So when you were editing people's work, Dr. Wright, what did you bring to it?
A machete.
I don't doubt that.
Well, no. You've got a background, right?
Huh?
You've got a background in psychology, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, what I would bring is, obviously behavior. I mean, there's a behavior and pattern analysis to everything. And one of the biggest things for me is when stories don't make sense in the sense of behavior, because a lot of times people don't even realize like the discontinuity. Like they'll say they kind of they create, because I mean that's what the MSSP and a lot of that is based on. It's kind of it's basically asking the same question in a different way, because it's like questioning the same kind of objective stressor or cognitive critical thought. Like say, if I ask you, would you steal this? And you say no. And I say, would you stop someone else from stealing it? And, the objective there is, oh, okay, like both of those to whatever, the whatever test is doing are the same thing. You know what I mean? It's just dishonesty in any way. Right. And so there are a lot of times in stories where the characters they don't act right. And a lot of that is, like you said, a hero is supposed to be a certain way. And, you have that kind of, we've gone through this before, and I don't want to, wax too poetic on it, but there is a sacrifice to being a hero. And part of that sacrifice is you have to do things the hard way. You don't get to do things the easy way ever.
You mean
Because
what you're saying basically is that with great power
comes
comes
great responsibility. And that's the truth. But I mean, what people want, they want to, and that's what agenda is kind of a shortcut, right? Like the agendas take the shortcut. They put the MacGuffins in, they put the Deus Ex Machinas and this kind of thing, because you don't, you're acting in a different way. Like, I mean, again, I'm going to harp on Last Jedi because it's just so bad and it's so easy. Sorry, guys. But you have, what is it, like the Finn, right? The black guy.
Mhm.
The impetus of that character is amazing.
Yeah.
Say again.
Wasted opportunity.
Exactly. I was just gonna go. I'm like, imagine this, right? Real quick scenario. What if Finn was a Sith that could never make it instead? So then they are like, you're a failed project as a Sith. We're going to turn you into a stormtrooper. And then he goes down there. Something happens. Blah blah. He gets somehow disassociated from his group. Finds Rey, and then begins to learn from Rey like how to be something other than what serves the collective and what serves the the hate and everything. And then near the end, he wasn't able to use a lightsaber or anything near the end. Instead of her saving the day and being all awesome, you hear that zing, and you turn around and it's Finn holding not the Sith saber but a Jedi lightsaber.
Honestly, I'd like to know how it is that a janitor ended up in a stormtrooper uniform.
I know. I mean, that's the thing too, is like you took this character and the whole point was, look at how diverse we are. And then what you do is, what you do for, more diversity is you make this character fit whatever plot point is presented and problem you need fixed now.
Well, the problem is that Finn had the makings of the hero's journey. He starts off at the bottom rung. He has that oh shit traumatic moment when we very first are introduced to him, which actually I thought was great character development. He had a shit life, he has a shit job, and he's dropped into his first opportunity to show himself to be an actual soldier.
And he has a soul.
Yeah, and he has a soul, and he flips out and gets combat shock, and it's him. We're watching him crawl out of that and come into his own. That would have been a brilliant story, but it would have taken away from Rey.
Exactly. I was just about to say what he was turned into is her whipping boy.
Well, yeah.
I don't need no mans. I don't need no man. Don't touch me.
They took their token black guy and made him the butt of the joke.
Yep.
Great job, Hollywood. You're so enlightened.
Yeah, let me, that's great diversity. You took the black guy and made him the token black guy.
It made him the token black guy janitor who can't.
Janitor, yeah, the most menial job there, so that because you were too stupid and couldn't think of another way to handle your whole MacGuffin laden universe.
Well, I would say what might be a good idea for a future episode of this show, since we're doing this now, is to take a piece of modern pop media that is on everyone's mind, go through it, and give it the adventures and awful treatment, but do okay, how do you save this?
You can't save those films without completely redoing it.
But yeah, just critique, okay, why does this not work? How do you fix it?
I think doing Star Wars would be low-hanging fruit. So.
Yeah, why would
She's like, I'm sorry, there's no saving it.
No, there is no say. Well, not only that, but I'm a huge fan of the expanded universe, and so it just pisses me off. Screen.
But yeah, well, the thing is, and I've said this on the last episode, was that the problem with Abrams' writing is it looks great scene by scene, but if you think about anything, it falls apart.
Yeah, just don't think about it.
Just kind of nod and enjoy the spectacle and don't think.
Ever. Not afterwards, not ever.
Yeah, and definitely after the movie, don't think about what you saw. Just say, man, that was fun.
You're just here for the lens flare.
It's the thread where once you even start thinking about what you just saw, it just unravels.
So wait, Vulcan doesn't have any defense systems, so they have to send the entire fleet that's at Earth. So Earth is now defenseless. They don't have any defenses at Earth. What? And a mining ship's going to destroy the planet? What?
Well, don't worry, because Soren's rocket can like warp time and space and get to the sun in 10 seconds after launch.
Why is she giving birth during the big battle?
Oh, that, yeah.
Oh, I can't wait till they get to Miss Marvel.
Oh God.
The woman who literally. Have you read about her superpowers?
Yeah.
She is the most ridiculous thing. Like what? Like what? I don't. Oh my goodness! I don't even know where to begin. The whole she distends herself through space and time itself.
Sure.
Okay.
Why not?
That's what we came up with, because we couldn't just have a regular girl do something.
Can't just be stretchy.
Nope. We gotta distend through space and time. And what's funny is what she does, besides the doing it through space and time with no limitations and it being a horrible story, is very similar to Brandon Sanderson, one of his stories. And I'm like, okay, I kind of get it. But part of what made his a good story and hers crap, and this one crap, is that there are limitations in Brandon Sanderson's story. And that in order to like save up and be this like massive, person at one point, the person has to like, sit in the dark, sick and deathly, and like look like goo for hours on a day.
Well, at least then, it's interesting because there's some consequences to the ability. It's not, being this perfect being who has these incredibly amazing abilities. I mean, that's boring and dull and yet does not make a hero. It's cheap.
Okay, a couple things in the chat, and it's just one is directed at me, and I feel I have to answer it.
Mm-hmm.
Jashiro Finney, please, you and Kat should do more Adventures in Awful. You should take turns to be subjected to reading awful comics and tear them apart. I've got an idea for Ishii, Captain Marvel comics. Okay, we'll give it a shot. I will say the problem is we tried to do one where I was reading it, and maybe I've gotten a bit better at it, but the problem is I don't react. I'm so monotone. I come off very dry. I don't have the explosive personality Kat does. So I don't know. It just didn't seem all that entertaining. It's much better if I just meme my stuff in. But if you got an idea, definitely tweet me about it. As for why we don't do more of them, I hate to say it, guys. I'm going to be completely upfront. I think we're down to doing one every 3 months because the labor that goes into those, we did one a month for a year, and unfortunately, until the channel starts bringing in more money, we just don't have the time to dedicate the time investment. If we were doing Adventures in Awful, we would literally have nothing else on the channel, and I would probably be getting less work done. I really want that to change. But until we get more subscribers on Subscribestar, I just can't see more than one every 3 months.
But we are working on doing episodes of Talking Shop and Night Editor in that vein that are a lighter version. So.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't do episodes or if we don't upload something at least once, twice a week, our channel just starts losing subscribers immediately. We just start dropping. And I think that's just YouTube hates us.
Yeah.
Which has made it very difficult.
Make sure you've got that notice bar, not only for our channel, but for the professors as well, so you can get every single episode.
Yeah, you need to. That's the thing. You've got to share this stuff on Twitter. Otherwise, people don't even know the episodes go up.
Share this episode.
So that was another real frustrating part is we'd make these episodes and no one would even know they went up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is just enraging. I can't wait for the day that people use BitChute instead. But I am in the process of editing Kim and Kim Adventures in Awful. Yes, it's in the works. I am working.
Sorry.
Second, somebody wrote, Guyver isn't as OP as Ms. Marvel. I don't know what that means.
Okay. Thank you.
OP, what's OP?
Overpowered.
Oh. Guyver's kind of cool, though. Miss Marvel looks retarded. Seriously, Guyver looks cool.
I think it's so funny that, you semi-elite speak and it's just like, what does he mean? What is this strange language?
Hey, I'm Gen X. I can't keep up with these damn Gen Z kids.
Yeah, I'm sitting there going, no, it doesn't mean old school. What's it?
What does this mean?
Op. Is that like gay op? What op? I don't get it.
What are you talking about over there?
The other things I'd say is, first, I would like people to start asking for topics for us to cover in the chat or in the comment section once the episode's over, because I think that would be really good to start hearing what you guys want us to discuss, things that we can do to help you become better and more experienced writers and help your projects along. And second, is there anything else you guys can add to the episode? I mean, at this point, I think we're kind of just we've covered it, right?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of finding an editor, like I said, you've heard Kat and I both, talk about some of our approaches, but don't be afraid to ask for endorsements or ask for references too, because there are a lot of people. Anybody, that's the double edge of with self-publishing. Anybody can just publish their diary and then try to get you to buy it and pay money for it, but with anybody can just claim they're an editor and try and get you to pay them money too, so do some research.
Actually, I can answer a way to deal with that. Yeah, you don't want to just go to anybody as an editor because sadly it's like a doctor. You can get a rotten doctor and man, they'll screw you up. To kind of pick the right one. The benefit with someone like, well, that's actually why Kat started the Night Editor show, is you can get a sense of what she will bring as an editor to you. I mean, every week she posts the Night Editor, and that's the kind of interaction she would pay attention to personally if you hired her. And I would say on the same regard, hearing Professor Geek talk, what kind of material, what he's going to bring back. You've heard his critiques and his the experience he has, and his personality. He isn't a jerk. Not like me.
And I'm actually quite nice when you're working with me. I would say my final comment is for those out there, whether you're experienced writer or you're just starting out, definitely write what you want. And as I said before, a good editor will want to see your vision come to life. They won't want, they will not try to insert themselves into it. Everybody's human. Everybody has their own biases, but a good editor can distance themselves. Also, since we were talking about cliches, the lists of rules of what to do and not to do exist for a reason. As I said in a previous episode of Night Editor, I am a firm believer in it's okay to break the rules as long as you know what you're doing. If you're just starting off, don't even attempt to break those writing rules because you're going to fail and it's going to be horrible. Save those great ideas for later once you have a better idea of your craft.
Good point. Yeah, I just wanted to point people to Ishii's channel. I did put the description down below the video. I do have links to Ishii's channel there with the Night Editor, Kat's video and everything. And I think I did. Yeah, I did here. And then also link to Dr. Wright's channel. Yeah, so like you say, he doesn't put out much content, but you can find some stuff there. Maybe he'll start putting up more.
Well, I've been there's the Insider channel, and we do a stream on there most days.
Do you want me to put that link on here instead? I forgot about that. Yeah.
We haven't been doing that. We haven't recently. Well, we've only done like one or two in the past week or so because I was in a hurricane and had no power for 3 days.
Was that fun?
Yeah, but then what was even more fun is right after that on Saturday, I was like, oh, let's it's football day. Let's get some wings. We got some wings, and the place we got wings from, like, their generator went down and they didn't know it, so the wings were bad, and everybody got food poisoning.
No.
Oh, jeez.
Yikes.
And you can't like taste that really well when it's double fried and smothered in sauce. So yeah.
Oh, that's not good.
Nope. It was bad for a couple of days. So that happened, and then after that happened, I had to catch up at work. But things are beginning to slow down, so hopefully I can do stuff again.
Okay, we've got 2 requests, and I think both of them are very interesting. Somebody asked if we asked us to do, it was Muhammad asked we do an episode on dialogue.
Oh, yes. Good one.
Yeah, we can do that.
Next week.
That's a great idea.
Sounds good.
And then
Same bad time, same
Amanda,
bad channel.
I'm sorry, I can't read that name.
Who's this?
As if it was Muhammad.
Anand Khurana. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Wants us to discuss One Punch Man and Neon Genesis, Cowboy Bebop, and Trigun. Oh, it wants reviews.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we talked about Cowboy Bebop on my channel before. I'm a big fan of that. Trigun's on the to-watch list. So.
Oh, you got to watch Trigun.
Yeah.
I had a Monev the Gale. I had 2 Vashes, both the red and the black. I had a Wolfwood, and I had a Merrill.
And stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
Still have my black Vash somewhere.
Well, good show, everyone. And I look forward to doing this again.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah. So you can find my editing rates and stuff like that. I put a tweet out. I think it's still pinned to my Twitter. Kat, where can they find yours if they're interested in talking to you, or should they just contact you on email or DM?
Contact me at nighteditor.com. I have a brand new website with a request form.
Nice. Perfect.
Nice.
Good to know. Yeah. Are you on the market there, Dr. Wright? Is that something you're not doing right now?
I have like 2
You're
books
always on the market.
Hey, baby. No, I have 2 books that I'm writing right now. So I'm busy, like, just doing my own thing right now. I'm trying to, do Insider. Plus, like I said, I've got two of these books, and I do work still about 60 to 70 hours a week. So that's about all I can do.
I understand. Yeah. Well, yeah, so that's coming up. I'm going to have a review for Kyung Lee's Battle Maiden Knuckle Bomb, hopefully by morning. I'm going to try and work on that.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
I got my copy. I am looking forward to just sitting down at a quiet moment and reading it straight through. It is beautiful.
Yeah, really good. So I can't wait for that one. And I'm going to say right up front in the beginning of the video that I have nothing bad to say about this because I was one of the editors. So obviously I'm not going to, oh, this is horrible. I can't believe I didn't catch that, No.
Well, hey, there's a stamp of quality. You edited Knuckle Bomb.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Hey, yeah, you want quality there. The prof worked on Knuckle Bomb.
There you go. Some feather in the cap. But yeah, really excited about that. So I'll put that out. Probably no gaming stream on my channel tonight because I got a lot of stuff to get done, work to get done. But definitely we'll do one tomorrow. I have started doing I'm trying it out, my own little channel membership, since who knows when YouTube will get around to approving me for it. So I just there's anybody who wants to PayPal me $8 gets a weekly members only gaming stream. We're going to start playing through The Witcher and talking all things Witcher, books, comics, Netflix series, and all of that, as well as some channel art prints and stuff like that. So DM me if you're interested about that. But
we're going to cover how it's yet another time where they were going to do Elric and decided to change their mind at the last moment.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Elric.
Excellent.
Are we talking about Witcher again?
Yep. So. Yeah, so that's what's going on for me. But yeah, anything else from you guys?
Go to our channel, subscribe to our subscribe star.
Yep.
And
send me your questions too.
buy my books when I write another one, which I'm in the process of doing.
So
Yeah. If you like, I mean, honestly, if you like robust, rich, thick, dense cyberpunk that within a page will blow your mind and, make you want to, jack up into the system and see what's going on yourself, then yeah, you'll like Ish's work.
all right. Well, on that note, thanks for watching, everybody. It's been a blast hanging out with you guys. Thanks to Dr. Wright and Ishii for letting this show be on my channel here. And we'll come back. Are we doing this next week or the week after next? What are we?
I thought we were doing it every 2 weeks, but it's
Every 2 weeks,
up to you.
Yeah, we'll do it every 2 weeks. That sounds good for right now. If that's okay with you guys. So
That's
yeah,
fine.
Will not be available in 2 weeks. So if you guys wanted to go ahead and do it, that's cool. But
Okay,
I will
well,
be in Virginia, actually.
You want to push it forward to next week then?
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we can do it next week.
We'll do it.
Yeah, I
We'll
mean,
do
that's fine with me too.
dialogue.
Cool.
Okay, sounds good. We'll do that. And thanks for watching. Until next time, keep enjoying and digging deeper to the hero stories you love. Thanks for watching.
Good night.